And what's up? What's up? Welcome in. This is GC Live Monday edition of the show. Of course, brought to you by Clint Hammond of Mortgage Network. Give him a shout, 803-771-6933, or check him out, mortgagenetwork.com/Clint-Hammond. And joined now, as you can see there, by a very special guest. Patrick, I know you've been doing maybe the media tour since your retirement. You did JB and Goldwater, I think, last week. I think maybe talk to the state newspaper possibly, but dude, we appreciate the time. 10 years in the league. You've been playing, football your entire life. What has the last week or so been, man? What have you been doing with your time? How did it feel weird to wake up and not feel like a football player?
When I hurt my neck during training camp, I knew the writing was on the wall. I was holding on to hope that somebody would just give me a sympathy Super Bowl ring. and after the conference games, when I saw the fullbacks went down and I knew there was no interest in those two teams, I'm like, okay, it's time. I'm 200. I don't look like a fullback anymore. I'm 218 pounds. Enjoying time with my family and kids, playing some golf when I can, doing some grad school work. So staying busy. It's been good. It's been very humbling. All the support that I'm getting and all the feedback I'm getting from my career. I didn't think I was that influential on as many people. So it's really cool to sit back and reflect on it all.
Patrick, appreciate you joining us, man. Again, like Wes said, and here's what I wanted to go back to and spend some time on. Wes, I don't know if you have any questions specifically on this, but I was looking back today because I remember when you were getting recruited by South Carolina. So the 2007 class, I think it was ranked number 6 by Rivals.com nationally. So that was a class that had a lot of guys in it, right? Had
bunch of studs.
Stephen Garcia, Melvin Ingram, Cliff Matthews, Travian, a lot of big-time guys. And I know
don't forget the 5-star, Chris Culley.
Chris Culley was in there. And I know you won't mind me saying this because I've even seen you joke about this. Did you realize you were the prospect in that class?
Yeah, I'm aware. Thanks for bringing that up again. But no, I feel like all the kind of stars are aligned for me to have kind of a chip on my shoulder like I always have playing. And being a 2-star, and my dad read those message boards, and I could tell he was a little ticked off sometimes. I'm like, what's going on? Because these Gamecock fans don't get it. They don't know anything about you. They've never seen you play. They don't know you're gritty. They don't know how tough you are. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, these message boards, never mind that. Just go prove them wrong.
Well, and you definitely did that. Looking through that list, if I'm not mistaken, you just finished up your playing career, as we talked about, and the only other guy that is still in the league, I think, from that list is Melvin Ingram, who's obviously done pretty well for himself. So obviously, whatever that ranking was, you obviously outplayed it. But one other follow-up on that is take us back to the recruiting process, because you had 17 sacks as a senior, played both ways, 17 sacks. You also played offense, 129 tackles. But the schools, in terms of the schools that offered until South Carolina came on, a little bit smaller. I know Urban Meyer had some conversations with you from an older story I was reading on our network. But take us back to the recruiting process, and maybe why do you think you were a little bit under recruited coming out until South Carolina came along?
My recruiting process was pretty quiet. A lot of work on my end to get my name out there. I went to a lot of junior day showcases. I went to a lot of mini combines. The problem is, and always was through my career, is I think the fastest forward I ever ran was 4.72. When I was in high school, I weighed 217. I played outside linebacker, defensive end. What kind of all-American outside linebacker, defensive ends do you have that are 6'1", 217, and run 4.77? Not many. My skill set, I guess, per se, when it comes to running, jumping, physical size, those aren't the attributes that I'm necessarily proud of. It's more my intelligence of the game, my football IQ, tough, gritty, stubborn, know where to be, dependable. Those are kind of the attributes that you don't see at a showcase, at a combine. You don't see those. You see them on tape, but it's hard to get SEC coaches to watch a 2-star tape. So.
Obviously, Patrick, you ended up you did get at least one SEC coach to watch the tape and an offer. Spurrier comes in. He offers you. Everybody's got Steve Spurrier stories, man, and I'm sure being recruited by Steve Spurrier is probably an adventure in its own. But what was that like? Can you take us back, maybe even when you sort of first started hearing from Coach Spurrier, and you're like, okay, this is going somewhere, and just how that process played out for you as far as being recruited by a legend like that, man?
Yeah, it was. I got really lucky. My uncle Chris DiMarco knows Coach Spurrier very well from their time in Florida, so that was kind of the initial intro. My uncle was like, "Hey, Coach Spurrier, my nephew's pretty darn good at football. I know he's not very touted, but check him out, see what he's about." So they had me up there my sophomore year summer for their junior day. And I was outside linebacker, defense end. Coach Tyrone Nix was the D coordinator, linebackers coach at the time. So I did a lot of individual work with him. And then I came back up there for the senior showcase and combine stuff. But John Hunt, who was the offensive line coach during that time, was recruited in my area, Orlando. And he came down for my spring game. And I was when you watch me play football, I'm a really, really good football player. I'm just not going to light up any combine. So when he saw me play, he came down the field afterwards. He's like, "Man, you're a stud. How have you not been recruited and this and that?" And then as the process started to come along and they started to show more interest, and then my senior year, I had an incredible year. My team went to the state championship. You kind of went through some of the stats I had, but I did a lot more versatility-wise. I threw a touchdown, I ran a touchdown, I caught a touchdown, I returned a punt for a touchdown, and I played defense. And I had all those stats that you said earlier. So it was kind of just finally getting acknowledged and getting the accolades and stuff. I was first team All-State. I ended up, I think I was top 30 or top 40 players in the state of Florida after the season was over, which was higher, I think, than any other recruit that came to South Carolina that signing class. So a lot of it was just playing good at the right time, showing up. But Coach Spurrier, is just such a character. He only came down to visit me once for an in-home visit, and both my parents went to UF. My mom grew up in Gainesville, Florida, so they were ecstatic just to have him in the house. And he starts talking 94 to 96 Florida Gator stories. My dad has some steaks on the grill, and my dad just in a trance listening to Coach Spurrier talk about this stuff. And my mom's like, "Hey, honey, have you checked on the steaks lately?" And he looked over his shoulder, and the grill's on fire. So he had to run out from Coach Spurrier's stories to go make sure the steaks weren't too charred. Thank goodness Coach Spurrier, being the guy he is, cut up the steak and put it on a salad. And he goes, "Hey, Mitch, this is the best dang steak I ever had." My dad's like, "Oh, boy." So, you can't make the stuff up. Coach Spurrier is he's one of a kind.
No doubt. So going to your career, once you get to South Carolina, tell me a little bit about there's so many topics to hit, but Marcus Lattimore has talked a lot about you, just the importance of, he's giving you a lot of credit for a lot of the blocking. I always think of, when I think of sort of that era, I always think of the 2010 Florida game, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Marcus, 212 yards. You go back and look at the tape, you're out there blocking on a lot of those plays. How was it playing with Marcus Lattimore and some of those other great ones that were around that time at South Carolina?
It makes it a lot easier. That's the first thing that comes to mind. You got a great back with, all the intangibles that Marcus has and are just the person that Marcus is. It makes the fullback's job easier, makes the offensive line's job easier, makes your quarterback's job easier, makes your receiver's job easier. Having a guy like Marcus back there, not taking anything away from a lot of the other players that we had that year, but Marcus stepping up that year and playing for us was the reason we were able to do what we did. Being able to rely on the run game heavily when you need to and finish drives off with it. And also, having to have 8 guys in the box and stack boxes against us because Marcus is doing so much damage in the run game creates one-on-one matchups for guys like Alshon Jeffrey, Jason Barnes, Dio Moore, like the guys that we had, Torrey Gurley. So Marcus, just an all-around incredible human being, heck of a football player. It's still, I remember when he tore his knee up the second time, I was in Kansas City on a Saturday after I walked through. I think it was against Tennessee, and I remember watching the game, and I just started sobbing. He's just such a special person. You don't wish that upon anybody, but he's rebounded and he's doing his own thing now, and I'm super proud of him and grateful for him. And Marcus is a very special person.
Now, obviously, it seems like Marcus has made an impact on people well beyond on the field, off the field as well, man. So, as far as back to sort of on the field with you, I see people talk about the fullback position in general, and the spread offense is everywhere now. And how important do you think it was for you to be able to show your versatility? I know at South Carolina you were playing fullback, but you were lined up at tight end some, and it seems like these days, guys coming up, they almost have to be able to do some like H-back type stuff and show their versatility. How have you just seen that position evolve through your time in football, and how important is that versatility, man?
Well, that story kind of, I was strictly a fullback special teams guy my first 2.5, 3 years at South Carolina. And then we had some of that Wesley Saunders drama where he got in trouble. And that was right before spring practice going into my senior year. And Coach Spurrier goes, DiMarco, you're pretty smart. You think you can learn how to play tight end for us this year? So, of course, I'm like, heck yeah, the more I can get on the field, the better I'm going to be, the more I can do, the more of a chance I have to make it at the next level. And, I just love competing, so I want to be out there every single play I can. My senior year I played Y, which is like tight end in 1-back sets. In 2 tight end sets, I played F, so like the H-back position. And then when we were in 2-back, I played fullback. So I had a lot of versatility. And it helped transition to the NFL. There's a lot of time, or a couple times throughout my career where, you dress 2 or 3 tight ends and you have a bunch of packages for them, and one of them goes down, one of them gets hurt, and they're like, man, this was 30% of our base game plan. We can't throw it out the door. Hey, Pat, I want you to make sure that 50% of those plays and let us know which ones you're comfortable with if somebody does go down. And that happened probably 4 or 5 times to me during my career in the NFL, which is probably why I played so long, because I was able to pick that stuff up and just work my craft. But just the more you can do, it's kind of the nature of the beast when it comes to the NFL level and even at the college level now. It's they're asking guys to do a lot of different stuff, and the more you can do, the more they can get you on that field.
That's where I was going to go with my next question, Patrick. Is if you were giving advice to current college players or young NFL players, whatever it may be, in terms of longevity. That they always say that the NFL stands for not for long. Went through the 2007 commitment list earlier. Lots of those guys were in the league. You and Melvin Ingram, the only 2, that were still in as of recently. What's the key? Is it just versatility? Is it playing special teams? Like, what are sort of some tips that you would give guys that are looking to make that jump or have a chance to?
Oh, it's so your best ability is availability. So your health is the most important thing, and taking care of your body is at the utmost. I was watching an NBA game 2 days ago, and they were saying LeBron James spends over $1 million a year on his body to make sure he's healthy, which makes sense why he's doing it at such a high level still. But other than being out there and being able to play, special teams is especially for a fullback. If you're not I've seen first round draft picks playing a lot on special teams nowadays. You only have so many roster spots. The NFL, you dress 46 on game day. Your offensive line aren't playing special teams. Your defensive line aren't playing special teams. Your quarterback's not playing special teams. Your star wide, So it kind of narrows it down where you have a select group of 30 guys that's the nucleus of all those special teams units. So that was part of why I played for so long. I played 3 or 4 phases my entire time throughout my career. And I just, I'm being a 2-star, like I had a chip on my shoulder. And I think the only reason I was able to really make the field at South Carolina was because Coach Beamer saw something in me as a player. And I played on all 4 phases my freshman year right when I got there, and I made some plays for him. And it's kind of, that's the way to land. If you're not slotted to start on offense right here, right now, you start playing on special teams, you start opening people's eyes, you start getting recognized a little more, and they're like, okay, this kid's got something. This kid's got something. Let's give him 5 plays on offense this week. Okay, he played really well in 4 of those plays. Let's give him 10. Let's see how he reacts to 10. So it's kind of an evolving. It kind of evolves, but it's the more you can do. Like I wish I ran 4.5 or 4.6 because I would have been such a good special team player. But my 4.7, 4.8, probably 4.9 my last year or two, just made it difficult. I mean, I knew where I needed to be. It was just when I'm trying to outrun a guy who runs 4.5, 4.6 down the field, I'm kind of SOL there.
Let's keep it right there. You mentioned Coach Beamer. I know, obviously, he was very involved as an assistant previously under Coach Spurrier. He gets hired this offseason. I know I saw on Twitter you were at the facility. You were quoted as saying it's an NFL facility. So what have been just your thoughts on, Coach Beamer and how much of a fit he could hopefully be for South Carolina's program? And what did you think of that facility, man, compared to maybe the facilities when you were here at South Carolina? I know some of the guys have commented that basically you guys are the reason they're able to have that facility now based on some of the winning y'all did back then. So what did you think, checking it out and spending some time with Coach Beamer?
Yeah, it was that facility is incredible. When I decided to head on over there, I kind of texted Connor because I know he has a big role at the facility, and I was like, hey, like, I have no clue where I'm going, so will you give me a heads up? So he sent me the address, and I'm like, that's not the stadium. And he goes, oh, no. We haven't been back in the last 2 or 3 years. We have a whole new thing somewhere else now. So I pull up, and I turn down, what was it, there was a bar back there, something Cockcaboose or
Lou's Cockcaboose.
something back there behind Carolina Walk. But as I turn down, I'm like, this is strange. And I turn in, and then I see like this massive building, and it's incredible. It's the layout of it. I mean, they really did it right. It's open, expansive. It's state of the art. It's got everything everybody needs. The weight room is better than any NFL weight room I've ever been in. The training room is state of the art. I mean, I was blessed in Buffalo. They had an incredible training room in Buffalo. The Pagulas invested a lot in the team, but the training room at South Carolina is equally. They have a sleep pod. They have a float tank. They have underwater treadmills. They have cold tubs, hot tubs. I mean, it's, you name it and they got it. It's super impressive. And I think a lot of it does bank on the, 2009, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14 seasons with guys like Conshaw, Marcus Lattimore, Alshon Jeffrey, like those 11-win teams. I mean, the big money's coming in during those years. So, Ray Tanner did a good job of allocating that money and building that facility because, in today's world, it's keeping up with the Joneses. You have to have the top tier facilities to recruit, and that's kind of the nature of the beast. So, if guys, my pitch would be as a recruiter, if you want to do something special that hasn't been done in South Carolina history, just short of winning an SEC championship game, you got the facilities and you got the staff to do it. And that not working into Beamer. When he was being talked about for the job, I was so fired up. I actually reached out to him and I just told him, like, man, I'm pulling for you. I'm really excited. I think you do an incredible job as a head coach. And he got back to me, within a couple minutes and said, Pat, like, this is it. This is the job I want. This is the job. If they'll have me, I'll stay there forever. And that just spoke volumes to me. So I'm pumped he's got the job. I'm excited for him, for his staff, for his family. And they got the facilities to go recruit now. It's just about getting those guys in and getting in those games.
Last one I got for you today, man, is just a little bit more on Beamer. Tell us about, his coaching style, his personality traits, where obviously you know him really well, played for him. He coached you at South Carolina, like you said, on special teams. What are the traits that you think that he brings to the program that give him a chance to be successful in the big chair, so to speak?
I think, his passion and his energy are two things that just jump off the table for me. I'm pretty sure he cracked a rib or something a couple times when he was in South Carolina celebrating big special teams plays, coming on the sideline, getting in mosh pits and stuff with us. And we're like, Beamer's what, 180, 185 pounds? Like, dude, be careful down there. So I think that, and then I think he's super organized, and he's just, he's Frank Beamer's son. He has the blue to build something to have sustained success. So, I think that he's surrounded himself with a good staff that he trusts and he believes in. It's about getting those recruits in. It's about developing the talent that he has there. I think that was a big thing that was missed upon with the previous regime there was, having top 20 classes year in and year out and not finishing in the top 20 when it comes to college football rankings. That there should be a direct correlation there. So they need to get the guys in, and then they need to develop them. They need these coaches better recruit really well, and they better coach and develop really well, because that's the nature of the beast, especially with today's age with the transfer portal. You're basically on NFL 1-year contracts every year. So, it's exciting. I'm pumped. Like last year was the first year I've watched this much Carolina football. 2-8 did not sit well with me, nor with a lot of people. So I'm glad there was turnover, and I'm glad there's a new regime in, and I'm excited to see what Beamer can do. And I'm all in supporting him. Hopefully I can get back to Columbia for a couple games and enjoy it all, man. I miss Columbia.
Patrick, we really appreciate the time today, man. So last couple things here, we'll let you get back to work. Some folks were asking here in the little chat we have going, and maybe, I don't know, maybe you can't whittle it down to one or two things, but do you have any favorite memories they were also asking, is there a favorite back you blocked for? That may be like picking your favorite kid or something, but just what maybe if you just look back your entire career, NFL, Carolina as well, what are just your longest lasting memories that you always have?
I would say one of them was, I grew up huge. Both my parents went to the University of Florida, so beating the Gators down in the Swamp to win our first ever SEC East was probably, my favorite college moment for sure. Just icing on the cake with that is we get back to Columbia. It was a night game in Gainesville. We get back to Columbia, it's got to be 3 or 4 in the morning. And almost the entire lower bowl of the stadium is full with fans supporting us, celebrating. Coach Spurrier did give us a heads up. So as we pull our buses in, we're like, man, there's a bunch of cars here. We go to walk into the locker room to drop our travel gear off. And he kind of points us out to the field. Goes, come here, guys. And he calls us out there. And there's, 10, 15, 20,000 fans sitting in the stadium just applauding us. It was, I'm getting chills here thinking about it. Just goes to show Gamecock Nation is there's nothing like it. I love all of them. I miss those moments, cherish those moments. And then, playing in the Super Bowl was incredible. First, my one Pro Bowl. I love football. I'm not one of those players that's going to sit here and say, I like playing football. I love everything about the game. I love breaking down film. I love doing the rookie development stuff. I like just being around the guys and loving on them. So playing in my first Pro Bowl was I'm like a big kid. I was sitting there and I'm like, wow, there's Adrian Peterson. There's so-and-so. I've played against him, but now I'm sitting here and I'm basically equal value to those guys. This is incredible. A story, my parents came out for the game. My wife was 38 weeks pregnant, so she couldn't come. But I met my mom off the elevator. We were going to dinner that night, and I was like, Mom, where's Dad? My dad's very similar to me. And my mom's like, "Oh, he came down here about an hour and a half ago. He's just sitting in the lobby watching the players walk by." I'm like, "Oh, jeez." Hopefully, it didn't embarrass me too much. But now, I guess your last part that was like, who is my favorite guy to block for? I mean, all of them are so special in their own way. I mean, guy like Shady McCoy can, I mean, super smart, so elusive. I said the guy that I was closest with, um, hands down during my career, was Devontae Freeman. Seeing him from a young pup coming out of Florida State, just rough around the edges, tough, competitive, didn't want to listen to nobody, and watching him grow up to be the professional he is now. I mean, she called me on New Year's Eve this year. You know, he was with the Giants and he was dealing with a hamstring ankle injury towards the end of the year. And he called me on New Year's Eve and he goes, "Hey, Pat, like, what's going on?" I was like, 7 o'clock, I'm about to put the kids in bed. And he goes, "Hey, you got time to talk?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I kind of told my wife, I was like, "You go take the kids up. I'm going to talk with Free for a little bit." And I talked to them for probably 45 minutes. And he just kind of just told me how much he loved me and how much of an influence I was on his life, how I helped change the scope of viewing on things, and just really kind of gave me the closure I needed on my NFL career. In a weird way, it was kind of what I needed to hear to know that I did it right. Needed to know that I didn't leave anything out there. So I love Free. So he's got to be probably my favorite guy I ever blocked for. Probably favorite guy I ever played for. So competitive, so talented, and just such an incredible human. And now a man. He's one of a kind.
Patrick, 10 years in the league, man. Congrats on a career. All your successes are very well deserved, man. Obviously, you've worked hard for it. We appreciate the time here, and they are dying. They are dying for me to ask you,
Yep.
and I'm not going to put you in the awkward spot of asking you directly. They're dying for me to ask you if you'll come back and be the running backs coach at South Carolina. But I'm just going to ask you open-ended. Obviously, you're going to have some time on your hands now, and I know you're working on your MBA. Maybe got your head in some other stuff. What's next for Patrick DiMarco? Do you know what's next now that you're sort of turning your page into your playing days of your football career?
Yeah, I mean, I would sit here and tell you I'm lying if I wasn't interested in that job. You know, my heart and soul is with the University of South Carolina, and I'm very familiar with the running back position. So it's kind of a match made in heaven. But, you know, I don't know logistically if it makes sense for me and my family, and if Beamer has that kind of on his radar. I did shoot him a message when the spot opened up, and I was like, "Hey, like, that is something I'd be interested in, and I'd love to be back." I mean, we talked previously about other roles of getting me back in the building more often and spending time with the guys. So, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't be dream job, especially being 32 years old or about to be 32 years old with the experience and just being removed from the game. But, you know, if it doesn't come to fruition, like, I think I want to stay in the football world. Like, there's no point, you know, I've semi-mastered that game. So why go and learn something new? So I whether it be administration, whether it be coaching, whether it be player development, I think coaching would probably hit home the most. I mean, I had such influential coaches in my career: Robert Gillespie, Jay Graham, Bobby Turner, Kelly Skipper. These are just running backs coaches that I had that meant so much to me in developing me to the man I am today, the father I am today, husband I am today. And I think that I want to do that. Like, I want to pour into 17, 18, 19, 20, whether it be the NFL or college level. I just want to pour in my wisdom and my love on guys, and just, you know, pass it along. I feel like I wouldn't do myself justice if I held all this football intelligence and all these life lessons I've learned from this beautiful game in. So, yeah, if Beamer would have me, would love to be back. If not, I'm going to pursue football in some capacity. I have some feelers out there with the Falcons and Georgia Tech here in Atlanta. But, you know, my heart's back there in Columbia.
Patrick, great stuff, man. Again, you gave us 30 minutes here, man. We appreciate it. And your passion stands out. And obviously, all these Gamecock fans are ready to hire you right now from what I'm seeing in this chat. So, whether it's at South Carolina or somewhere else, man, obviously you'll be successful. And, we'll be pulling for you. And if you ever need anything from us, let us know. Okay, man?
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Patrick.
thanks, Pat. That Pat DiMarco, 10-year NFL veteran, just announced his retirement here recently. And Chris, man, that's got to be one of my favorite interviews I think we've ever had here on the show, huh?
Yeah, really good stuff. Real insightful, real honest. So you don't get a lot of it wouldn't be coach speak, but coach speak, since he wants to get into coaching, or player speak or whatever from Patrick. He keeps it real, and just he's a real person, man. You can tell with really relationship driven, and loves Columbia, loves the Gamecocks still, and so definitely a good person for South Carolina, for Shane Beamer. Close relationship there. Good for him to have around the program in whatever capacity is. So really enjoyed hearing from him.
Yeah, there was no coach speak whatsoever. He mentioned the jobs he's interested in. He mentioned where his feelers are out there.
Right.
But, most coaches hold that stuff close to the vest, it seems. So that was good, and very open about his interest in the job too. So will be interesting to see it. Obviously, as we've reported on Gamecock Central, there are some other guys we have been sort of I would say focus on as far as that position goes, one in particular. But that was good, man. And if you missed the interview, in its completion, you can actually always go back, or you can listen to it on the podcast after the fact on all the major podcast platforms. Where you want to take this thing now, Chris? Signing day?
Yeah, signing day is in 2 days, believe it or not. We talk about this every year, but I feel like this year it hits home the most of just how different this is, than it used to be. It used to be the first Wednesday of every February. You might as well take off work. We're up at 5 a.m. We're going to sleep super late. It's wide open all day. And there's 20-something guys putting pen to paper. There's announcements. The first early signing period was put in December 2017 for the 2018 class. And I think that year, Wes, there were only, 3 guys we were waiting on that year? I think it was Josh Vann and Dylan Wanham and Rick Sandage are really the only guys. Other than that, the class is largely in place. And it's really been that way every year. This year's the same deal. But, a few guys we're still monitoring, but this year's had the addition of the transfer portal. Numbers are smaller anyway because of the portal, because of 4 spots being held over from the last class. But still some guys to watch, and just a really, really interesting recruiting cycle, and probably coming to a close for the most part on Wednesday.
Well, and I think when the early signing period started, we're sitting there and we're saying, all right, how's this going to work? When it was first announced, you're like, is this going to be the big signing day, or is February still going to rule supreme? Well, what we very quickly found out was that there was going to be a very strong push from the schools, from the coaches to the kids to go ahead and sign.
Yep. And
that sort of locked that in, because it's kind of a power struggle, but the coaches, for the most part, have the power unless you are an elite prospect. But what we found, really, whether you're an elite prospect or you were just under the radar and hoping to hop in to one of these spots that was left, basically. Well, what happens? We find out that if you're in a commitment class, but you don't sign, then the schools are going to say, well, we're going to keep recruiting for that spot if you don't sign. So you instantly had all this pressure on the February signing period, as far as the numbers go, originated from the early signing period. Now, Chris, we have it on the back end as well, because schools, as South Carolina is going to do this year, in the past, you maybe have a backup plan, right? We're essentially, you had your insider report today Y'all can go check that out, GamecockCentral.com. It's essentially like 3 guys that we're tracking for Wednesday. Maybe in the past, you might sit there and say, if it doesn't work out for this guy, we've got to fill this spot. We've got to fill this need. And you'd be trying to maneuver, well, are we getting this guy or not? If we go to signing day and we hold a spot for this guy and then miss on him, we might miss out on this backup plan. So you're constantly trying to maneuver that. Now you really just take an approach, well, if I miss, I'll just spend that on a transfer in the spring,
Right. Spend it on a transfer in the spring. If one comes along, hold it over, even if you want, until the next year. Because really, you're using your 25 initial counters every year. At some point, you're going to be over, on scholarships. You got the 85 limit that you're trying to navigate. The added bonus this year, if you want to call it that, what is the NCAA going to do in terms of the overall 85 cap relief? We presume they're going to do something, but they haven't let everybody know, at least publicly, what that's going to be. That being, they gave everyone a free year. So that means for seniors, they're able to come back for the 2021 season. There's several Gamecocks that are taking advantage of that rule. If you do that and you keep the 25 initial counter limit, which they have per recruiting class, there probably is going to need to be some relief somewhere so schools can navigate that. So we'll just have to see. But, we know for South Carolina's class, the numbers are going to be interesting. 4 from the previous roster that counted, towards this class. So that automatically puts you at 21 instead of 25. Then they're up to 7 guys from the transfer portal. We knew that South Carolina would be hitting the transfer portal hard this offseason. They certainly have. And then a mix of guys that had already signed back in December and a few other guys that could sign and be finished off on Wednesday. So really been an interesting cycle to sort of navigate. A lot of emphasis on the recruiting ranking as always. Obviously, Wes, if South Carolina recruits in the 90s or whatever in terms of recruiting ranking for the next 5 years, things probably won't go well. But this cycle is really interesting in that this unique set of circumstances that's literally never happened in college football has sort of led to South Carolina being very, very heavy on the transfer portal and just having to navigate some numbers issues to try to be as resourceful as possible.
Yeah, I think let's, if we go a little big picture here, Chris, I got to think at some point the recruiting industry is good. We're going to have to adjust, maybe at the national level even, and try and quantify the additions of transfers. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but these transfers are going to play. A lot of times they're going to make impacts, as far as the elite guys go. And clearly the transfers matter. So I think it's going to be very hard to do because you can't really rank them. It's very difficult to rank them, I think is the easier way to say it. But there's got to be some way to maybe ultimately quantify the additional help that schools are getting from the transfer portal. It's essentially free agency that's come to college football.
Yeah, and once that does happen, that's going to be tough. How do you do that? That's going to be a question that whoever ends up doing that will have to figure out because, for instance, we've seen this a lot. There are guys, Patrick DiMarco, for instance, timely example, who let's say Patrick got through 4 years of South Carolina and there was a coaching change and he said, I want to go play my 5th year at Florida, whatever. Well, obviously, Patrick DiMarco proved during his first 4 years that he was not a 2-star, right? So do you re-rank him at that time? Do you go off the high school ranking when you're adding in transfers? We don't know. But if the transfer portal remains as active as it has been this cycle, and it's been probably a little bit more active this cycle than it will be just because there are no spring evaluation period, no fall evaluation period, no contact period, no summer camps, obviously. So a lot of seniors have been sort of left in the dark. Those are the types of factors that I think have increased the activity, particularly for South Carolina, given their, holes at certain roster positions. So will it be this active always? maybe not at South Carolina's not going to take 7 transfers every year. I don't think. Right. It's been sort of a unique set of circumstances, but there is probably going to have to be a way in the future to build that in, or at least give an alternate model, an alternate ranking model to sort of account for that.
By the way, real quick here, Chris, I didn't go into details because we wanted to go ahead and get into our Patrick interview. But, of course, want to make sure everybody knows the show is brought to you by Clint Hammond of Mortgage Network. Give Clint a shout at 803-771-6933. You can shoot him an email at chammond@mortgagenetwork.com. Or I learned today, I didn't realize this before, you can actually just go to clinthammond.com and find all the information you need to get you set up with either a mortgage if you want a new house, or actually a great time to refinance, save yourself some money, and get sort of take advantage of these great interest rates that are available right now. Really never a better time unless you've refinanced or bought your house recently. I think pretty much anybody can benefit right now from the lower interest rates right now. So whether you're a first-time home buyer or if you're a seasoned veteran investor, give Clint a shout. He'll be sure to get you hooked up. And he's a huge Gamecock fan, huge Gamecock Central fan. So we are big fans of Clint Hammond. Somebody else I'm a fan of, Chris, and someone that I want to talk about a little bit here on the show right now, a new PWO commitment for South Carolina. And Chris, this is someone that I can't remember exactly how you phrased it on Twitter, but some PWOs, which is preferred walk-on additions, are more valuable than others. And you look at Eric Rice from AC Flora, and this is a kid where we've seen this run here of South Carolina landing some walk-ons. You look at Ronnie Porter right down the street at Heathwood. You look at Joseph Burns from Camden. You look at the running back from Sumter. This is a pretty nice little walk-on, I would say, walk-on class for South Carolina in-state.
Yeah, and that seems to have been a point of emphasis, is this ability to be able to attract, especially in-state talent, Wes, of some guys that have some smaller school offers, whether it's Division II or, FCS, maybe even start pulling some guys with some Group of 5 offers. At big-time programs, sometimes you see that, Wes. You'll see guys take a gray shirt or even take a PWO opportunity with the ability, the understanding of being able to earn a scholarship in the future. And so those guys you mentioned are really good players, guys that had scholarship offers to go play at some smaller schools. So Rice had a really good senior season for AC Flora. Obviously marched to a state title game run and had a really productive year. And earlier, after he picked up the preferred walk-on offer, which I think was in December from the Gamecocks, I asked his head coach Dustin Curtis about him. Just, hey, give me some traits of Eric Rice, and he raved about him, a bunch of different adjectives where, he's got a really big upside, good size, his frame's good ball skills. And one of the things that stood out to me was he said he had great acceleration. So when you look at a wide receiver, a lot of people talk about speed. Well, what does this guy run in the 40? I think not enough people ask about acceleration, your stop-start ability, your ability to get in and out of breaks. That's what can really help you create separation. And that's a point that one of the first things that Coach Curtis mentioned was that he had really good acceleration.
Dude, this Flora team, obviously, anytime you win a state championship, you got some dudes. But there's some guys on this team, man. You look at him, you look at the tight end Banks Pope, which was actually, I believe, was going to sign with App State and then gets a walk-on offer that he accepts from Clemson. I had a chance to see Ethan Beamish, the quarterback, throw recently at Perry Orth's camp. If Beamish was taller, this kid probably has some much better offers and is going to go play for former Gamecock recruiting assistant there in Limestone and Brian Turk. So, I think you look at this Florida team with Dustin Curtis and what he and Perry Orth and those guys have done. Obviously, anytime you win a state title, you got some dudes. But I've been impressed. I think they have some underrated dudes is the point I'm trying to get to.
They do. They've done a really good job there at that program. And so Eric Rice definitely coming from a quality high school program, which can matter, and they got some 2023 guys, Wes, that are certainly going to be guys to watch for anybody watching. That maybe we often have some comments about like old school high school football in the state. Carew Bates from the 2023 class at AC Florida is a guy that they feel like's got a chance to be a really quality receiver for them. He's the son of Jefferson Bates, who's a 4-sport athlete at Irmo and went on to play for Hayden Fry at Iowa, the late Jefferson Bates. So Carew Bates, his son, is going to be certainly a guy to watch. But, yeah, a lot of good players all over, man. They had good quarterback play, running back play, their lines, and obviously some skill position guys. And I guess we'll give a shout-out to Coach Curtis and his coaching staff too. They did a pretty good job with that group as well.
Yeah, they didn't screw it up,
Yeah, I think probably despite their coaching, they
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. They did a great job.
Yeah, very suspect head coaching job and quarterback coaching to be, very specific.
Right.
But no, two great guys and obviously did an outstanding job building that program up and putting it in a position to go win a title this year. Congrats. I was talking to Perry at his camp. Perry Orth literally got engaged and won a title within a week's span. So we all didn't like 2020, but for Perry Orth, the end of 2020 went pretty well for him. So what else we got, man? What are you laughing at?
Put me on. No, I'm laughing at you putting me on the spot with the what else we got. There's a lot to talk about. So, coaching staff-wise, running backs coach is still the last sort of piece that we don't know for sure what's going to happen there. Everybody's wondering about the timeline, probably soon, but not exactly a rush on that. Spring practice obviously starts later in March, spring game in April. But obviously with the players around now, you'd like to fill that spot as soon as possible. The one thing that's interesting is right now the recruiting game is still so different. It's not like you got guys coming on your campus. Everything's remote. You're not going out and visiting all these different territories. We don't know what spring evaluation period, it still projects to be dead for quite a while. So we'll have to see what happens there. So staff is taking shape in terms of support staff, strength and conditioning staff's in place. We've seen some more hires made, or Taylor Edwards getting the recruiting job, some other guys that are going to be filling out recruiting and off-field jobs. So the staff under Shane Beam are very much, continuing to take shape and getting really, really close to being completed.
Hopefully for the final time in all this. We did see a tweet from Eric Kimry, South Carolina tight ends coach, that Jason Brown and EJ Jenkins, the transfer kids, are actually already on campus. So they, I guess, will not be able to start class until March officially, I believe was still the deal, but they're able to go ahead and get into town and get on campus. And obviously, like I said, that puts South Carolina scholarships at 3 left. But I'll tell you one thing I'm very interested to see, Chris, will be EJ Jenkins. We know he's a phenomenal athlete. And we talked about this a little bit last week, but the more I think about it, the more I'm curious to see how exactly this kid ends up being used. I think we're going to know pretty quickly. Well, we maybe won't, but the staff will know pretty quickly how he matches up trying to run against SEC DBs. And, the kid can go catch the football. He's a downfield threat. The size is there. I mean, you look at that picture of him with Kimry Shaw and Jason Brown. It's like, none of these are like small dudes, and he's just basically towering over him. So I'm very curious to see once he gets in there with Luke Day, with Kristen Coggin and her nutrition system, the strength and conditioning, how big does this kid get? And how exactly does he end up fitting in South Carolina's offense? Is this guy going to be a true outside wide receiver type, or is he someone that you move around and sort of use more in like a Kyle Pitts at Florida? This was a guy who's a tight end, but just lined up all over the place. So to me, I don't think we'll know that until we get a glimpse of him against his teammates, SEC guys. But it'll be very interesting to see.
It will. And, obviously there's been no spring practice at South Carolina. Guys just got here. But from what we've heard, that there's even dating back to the first, initial sort of contacts, the initial, films, film study that South Carolina did on E.J. Jenkins, that the staff seemed pretty impressed with him, as a prospect. Just obviously his talent, his size, his ability to run at that size. But apparently his mentality has really stood out too. He's a guy that seems pretty hungry and has a real humble disposition about him. So I'm with you, man. Very intriguing skill set. I think the other day I said maybe one of the more intriguing guys on the roster, maybe the most, just because of that size ratio and the fact that he plays such a need position for South Carolina, needing guys that can do damage with the ball in their hands, get open. Can he be one of those guys for this season?
We got to pick on Greg for a second. How 6'4"? Is there any way that you can look at that picture and honestly say that EJ Jenkins looks 6'4"? Like I don't. I mean, even Chris, you're muted. Even if Jason Brown is 6'2.5" instead of 6'4", I see no way. I'll give you maybe 6'6" if you want to say he's not quite 6'8". I think he's even taller than that, but there's no way EJ Jenkins looks 6'4" to me.
Wes, can we put the picture up? Here, I can do it. I got it. Am I allowed to share a screen?
I think so.
Let's see. Let's get it here. I'm going to try to share my screen, and we'll see if we can get that going here. That's not it. Yeah, let's see if this does it. Are we on? Yes, no?
I'm not seeing it.
Well, you're not. Okay. Well,
let me effort that.
Let the actual producer of the show, Wes, handle that.
Am I the producer of the show? That's
You're the official producer. Greg says definitely not 6'8". Greg, so 6'4" is a no for me. If you want to say not 6'8", okay, I'm good with that. 6'4" is a no for me. That's going to be a no in true Randy Jackson style, because Brown is around 6'4", and he's obviously way taller. Also, the thing I would take, since we're picking on my man Greg, you pick on us sometimes too. It's all good. The EJ is frail. I'm definitely not on that.
Are we looking at the same people? Like,
okay, Greg is updated now and says 6'6" tops.
Well, now we're just changing our story. I don't know what. Let's have a. All right, Charles says he saw that Jenkins measured 6'7" and 3/4 at USC. I cannot confirm that. That'll be something to find out, Chris. Let's find out exactly what EJ Jenkins measured, and we'll go from there. But all right, and if we're already going from 6'4" to 6'6", that's a huge difference in football when guys at the combine are measured by the 1/8 of an inch.
Yeah.
So I'll give him 6'7". I think we see plenty of 6'4", 6'5" receivers, and they look very tall. But I don't know, man. It's not like Kimry is a short dude.
Right. He's not short.
And so even if Jason Brown is like one of those guys that's listed 6'4", but is really 6'2", 6'2.5".
Now, to add to Greg's conspiracy theory, couple bios online from St. Francis, right, for E.J. Jenkins, and one was their football signing day roster, and E.J. Jenkins was listed at 6'6", 210 at that time. Later, updated to 6'8", 235, and looked like 5 years older in that picture. So, obviously, dude grew not only from a height standpoint, but of course the frame as well. So.
Yeah. If you say 6'6", if he gets measured at 6'6", I'd believe that. 6'4", no way. There's no way that dude is only 6'4". So I tell you what, maybe let's find out what he actually is. And Mr. No Paywall Greg,
That's what I was gonna say.
If he is 6'4", tell you what, if he is 6'5" or less, I'll give you 6 months free to GamecockCentral.com.
I almost hope now that that's the case, then we can finally get Greg on the site, right? Then Greg can then come on the show and be like, wow, guys, I have been missing out for so long. I'm talking trash about paywalls for so long, and that was just so wrong of me.
Yeah, well, and see, here's the other side. Greg, if you are wrong, you have to buy 1 month. We're not going to sit here and be like, you have to spend a bunch of money.
Yeah.
You have to buy 1 month. So was it $9.99 or $9.95? I never know. It's $10. 1 month of GamecockCentral.com.
And then after that, he'll still stay on because he'll be like, oh, man, guys.
Exactly.
Yeah,
there you go. We're going to effort that. We're going to find out exactly what he measured in at South Carolina.
We didn't run Greg off, did we? I hadn't seen him. Greg, we're just sort of kidding a little bit.
Yeah, we're just messing around, dude. Except I'm serious about the bet.
Yeah.
This guy said you got to get a haircut, Chris.
Y'all, when I get a haircut, people make fun of it. When I don't, they make fun of it. It doesn't bother me.
They just make fun of you, I think.
Yeah.
Is the thing there. All right, y'all. If we're sitting here talking about Chris's haircuts and making bets with viewers, it's time to end the show. But there'll be plenty to talk about in the next couple of days. We'll hop on, of course, talk some signing day. Come on over, GamecockCentral.com. JEE says that this dude is 6'4", I will pay for a month for Greg.
Nice.
Okay, there you go, Greg. See, Greg's still not having to pay. This man does not like paywalls. All right, I for real hope we didn't take Greg off. We're just messing with you, man. He hasn't said anything in a while. All right, y'all. Appreciate the time. Appreciate the support. All right, hold on. Not yet. If he's 6'7", I'll pay for 6 months, no problem. Just looks like an embellishment. All right, y'all saw it. You see it. So if he's 6'6", then nobody wins. If he's 6'5" or shorter, then 6 months free.
Okay.
So there you go. We will find out. All right, y'all. Appreciate it. Chris, you got anything else, man?
I'm good. I have one other thought in the never-ending last segment of this show. Will Greg believe what we find out? Yeah, that's our solemn promise is we're not going to ask some people and say, hey, add a half an inch so we can get, we really won't.
He says bet. All right, y'all heard it. There's a few thousand witnesses that are going to hear this as well. So we will effort that, and we'll get back to you next show and let y'all know his official height. Appreciate Pat DiMarco for joining us. That was a great interview. He was very, very gracious with his time. I wanted to get Pat on for 10, 15 minutes, didn't want to bother him, and he went for a full 30 minutes of really, really good stuff. So appreciate him. Hopefully we can have him on later on. And who knows, maybe he'll end up back in Columbia in some role in the future. For Chris, I'm Wes. We'll see all of you on GamecockCentral.com.